What's up, guys? Sean here. Today I'm going to talk about Florida's new alimony reform law. Governor DeSantis signed this, and the law, which became effective July 1st, 2023, does away completely with permanent alimony. It's crazy. There's a lot more to it. I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, I got to let you know that nothing in this video is meant to constitute legal advice or is a substitute for having an attorney advising you of your specific set of facts. Okay. Nothing here is an invitation to start attorney-client relationships for informational purposes only. All right, now that's out of the way. For years in Florida, something called permanent alimony existed for long-term marriages where one spouse was the breadwinner and the other had sacrificed their career and education. They would be able to ask the court for permanent alimony. And as a divorce attorney who's also in Florida, I have experience with this. Yeah, I've obtained permanent alimony for clients. I have defended clients against permanent alimony, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. Permanent alimony is a very scary thing for husbands and husbands' lawyers. And yet permanent alimony was also a very important thing for a lot of wives, right? Or not just wives. The husband could have been the recipient spouse. But most of the time, it turned out to be the husband's paying and the wife's receiving. And now with this new law, permanent alimony is totally gone. All right. So some other just key facts about this new law. Instead of permanent alimony, now we've got durational alimony. Now, durational alimony has been around for a long time, for many years, all the way up until July 1st of this year. Durational alimony is alimony with an expiration date that can be ordered up to the full length of the marriage. So if I was married for 15 years, durational alimony could potentially be ordered for up to 15 years. That's all changed too. This law pretty much changes the definitions of everything that we've dealt with for the last many years. The alimony just really changes the rules. All right. So now durational alimony is the longest form of alimony that you can get. And it's got some limits, some pretty serious limits. Remember, I said up until July 1st, durational alimony could last up to the length of the marriage. Okay. Now, for a short-term marriage, durational alimony can only be ordered up to 50% of the length of a short-term marriage. All right. And a short-term marriage is now up to 10 years, whereas earlier this year, it was up to 7 years. Okay. Big difference. 60%. Durational alimony can be ordered up to 60% of a moderate length marriage. Okay. Moderate length is now 10 to 20 years. Whereas earlier this year, a moderate length marriage would have been 8 to 14 years or 15 years. Okay. And a long-term marriage, which would have been 16 plus years earlier this year, is now 20 years. Durational alimony can only go up to 75% of the length of a long-term marriage. Okay. This is pretty substantial because earlier this year, permanent alimony was the law. Permanent alimony was an option for spouses who stayed home and raised the kids and didn't go to school and didn't further their career. Now, the longest type of alimony that anyone can get in Florida is 75% of the length of a long-term marriage. Okay. Now that's still pretty good. That's not bad, but it's probably pretty scary for a lot of potential recipient spouses out there. Probably makes a lot of people think, oh, maybe I should be going to school in my spare time or opening a business or learning some sort of trade just in case. It's a good idea. I've always felt personally, it's not a good idea to be 100% financially dependent on a spouse, but this gives a lot of incentive to folks to really just have their minds, have their eye on what they could do just to earn a living if they had to. All right. So some other things are durational alimony is there's two ways that the court can figure out how much a durational alimony payment will be. Okay. That's either the reasonable needs of the recipient spouse. Okay. Or This is the crazy part for me. Or 35% of the difference between the recipient spouse's net income and the paying spouse's net income, whichever one of those two is lower. Okay. This is crazy because earlier this year, alimony was basically a lifestyle payment. Okay. It was, you examine the lifestyle that the parties lived during the marriage and you order alimony that is appropriate to help the recipient spouse maintain that lifestyle in divorce. It's no longer a lifestyle payment. None of the articles or videos or anything is really that I see out there is really touching on this. Alimony is no longer a lifestyle equalizer. It's now just based on reasonable needs. Okay. And who defines what reasonable needs are? I think that's something that the courts are going to really be working on and developing over the coming years. The appellate courts are probably going to be busy with this. It's pretty crazy. And you look at this, 35% of the difference between the spouse's incomes, right? There's tons of cases out there where maybe the recipient spouse earns $25,000 a year and the paying spouse earns 90 or 100. They're limited to receiving 35% of that difference. Okay. That's the ceiling. That's as high as they can go. And the judge can certainly order less than that. You think about before July 1st, the recipient spouse could, if they had a really kick butt day in court, could get up to 50% of the breadwinning spouse's income. So they just took the recipient spouses just took a huge step down in what they're able to potentially have awarded in their divorce case. So no mistake about it. This law is 100% in favor of protecting the breadwinner spouse, and it's 100% minimizing what the recipient spouse can potentially get in the form of spousal support in a divorce. I don't really know why. I don't know what the drive was. I know there were a lot of non-government organizations that were really pushing for this and advocating for this in our state capitol and at the governor. They've tried many times to pass this kind of law. It kept getting vetoed every time, but they got it this time. And it's good law. And I already see the judges are really trying to learn about it and understand it and adhere to it already. This is happening. This is done. This is a done deal. This is our reality now in Florida. Okay. Good, bad, ugly, like it or not, this is what our alimony looks like now. Now, a couple areas where I think it's going to be interesting seeing how the courts deal with the applicability of this. First is going to be when it comes to retroactive applications. So if I got permanent alimony 5 years ago, with the passage of this new law, I predict, this is my prediction, okay? I predict that I'm not going to be able to just run out and file a modification claiming, oh, there's a new law, so I can file a modification to do away with my permanent alimony. Certainly, the passage of this law is not just going to make everyone's permanent alimony change to durational. They can't do that. A judge would have to do that with a new final judgment. What I predict is going to happen now is if I had permanent alimony that was ordered 5 years ago, and I have something happen in my life that would otherwise qualify me for a modification, like maybe I get laid off or I lose my job for no reason, for no fault of my own. I get injured and can't work. Maybe I reach regular retirement age. Any of the stuff that would normally allow me to modify my alimony, that happens. I file a valid modification petition for my alimony. I think at that point, the judges are probably going to be very open to analyzing my modification case based on these new standards. I don't think that someone with permanent alimony is just going to be able to sprint to the courthouse and say, hey, the new law passed. Take away my permanent. I don't think it's going to work that easy. But I think this is going to give a lot of hope to a lot of people who are on permanent alimony who just feel like they have a life sentence. It's going to also really be scary for a lot of recipient spouses. I can see both sides of the argument here. I've represented clients on both sides of this, and I've got concerns about it, but I also know that there's a lot of, clients that I've represented over the years who I didn't think should be on permanent alimony, who this is going to give some hope to. One other situation where I think it's going to be interesting to see how this applies is when a spouse develops a permanent disability during the marriage that permanently affects their ability to earn income, right? So all the way up until July 1st of this year, there was case law that said that even in a short-term marriage, if a spouse developed a permanent disability that permanently restricted their ability to work and earn enough money to supply their basic needs for life, that they could petition the court for permanent alimony in their divorce. Now, it's not a guarantee that they would get permanent alimony, but it just opens that door and gives the judge the discretion to order permanent alimony. But now, permanent alimony is erased from the books. If you compare last year's version of Florida statute to this year's version, they have completely removed the term permanent alimony. It's not there anymore, at least not that I could find. So my question is, what about when these cases start coming down the pipeline where a recipient spouse developed a permanent disability during the marriage and they're permanently not able to work? Is the best they can do a durational alimony? I'm really curious to see how that works out, if the courts are going to make any exceptions there. Whereas attorneys, we're on the uncharted frontier, right, of alimony law now. It's always exciting when there's a big shakeup in the law because we get to be part of how the judges are interpreting this and how the appellate courts are coming out and ruling on these questions of retroactive applicability and, is something longer term appropriate if there's permanent disability. Anyway, I don't want to go on all day, guys. I really appreciate y'all hanging through, watching this to the end. If you felt like this video improved your situation, definitely hit that thumbs up icon. Helps us out in the YouTube algorithm. If you are someone who's interested in the law, celebrity divorce issues, that kind of stuff, learning about divorce law, so definitely subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. We're going to pump out really good videos like this as often as we can. Also, making this video for a lot of our former clients, our colleagues and friends, and for our YouTube channel. Definitely, guys, if you want to see more of this content, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.